a lot to report on the countdown today, but let's get to it. Hi everyone, I'm Sandy and welcome back to my channel. Today I have 1001 book countdown for you. It has been a moment, I think a month, since I've had a countdown video. It has just been, a little bit of a rough couple of months for reading. I've admitted that in both my TBR, my anti-TBR, and my July wrap-up, and I hope to have more books in August, but I don't have anything planned. So if you're not familiar with the 1001 book countdown, I will leave a card up here for you where you can go and check out the original video. But basically, I'm reading books off of the 1001 Books You Must Read Before You Die list and slowly making my way through them. I, of course, made it a much bigger project for myself because there are multiple editions of that book. I combined them all together, which actually has 1,315 books when you combine all 5 editions together, and I've been working my way through that for a number of years and just started documenting my journey out here on YouTube a couple of years ago. So I have made quite a bit of progress since then, which is amazing, but I hope you consider giving me a subscribe and sticking around and seeing how far I make it through this massive project of mine. It would go a lot faster if all I was reading was books from the 1001 list, but I certainly read a number of other things, so yeah. But for today, what we will go ahead and do is put up the numbers, which are 871, which is the main number I have left from the 1300, and 33. Every year at the beginning of the year, I pre-select 52 books that I like to try and focus on, trying to get that number to 0 by the end of the year, and I have not done it any of the 3 years that I have been doing this. I don't know if I'm going to make it this year because I am very significantly behind, but that is what the 33 number represents. All right, my books. I have a couple of books to talk about. The first book is actually the book for my 1001 book club for the month of July, and that was Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I have this this Barnes & Noble edition that I bought probably 20 years ago and had read it. This is a reread for me, and I had said last year that I was going to count rereads and then see at the end of my project where I was at and go from there. So I will get to count this one, but it is a reread for me. I'm actually going to put this version down because I get to show this one, this absolutely gorgeous edition of Jane Eyre, illustrated by Marjolaine Baston, and this is an exquisite copy. It is so pretty. If you look in the inside of this, it has just absolutely gorgeous illustrations all the way through it, and it has cool inserts of things in it as well. Just absolutely magnificent, this book. So Jane Eyre was originally published in 1847 by Charlotte Bronte. Charlotte Bronte, from what I can tell, had around 4 novels, some unfinished work, some poetry, and this was her first published novel, but not necessarily the first written novel. So a little bit on Jane Eyre, on Charlotte Bronte's works. On this particular author has 3 books on the 1001 countdown. This one, Villette and Shirley, and I have only read Jane Eyre and now read it twice. So I am not as familiar with the other 2 works. After reading this, have realized I forgot a lot about this book. If you're not familiar with Jane Eyre is the main character in this book. It starts with her as a young child going all the way to adulthood and all the trials and tribulations that she faces in her very difficult early life. She does not necessarily, I don't want to give spoilers, so I'm not going to talk a lot about that part of it, but Jane as a character is really, truly wonderful. She is so sweet and so giving and just in such a bad circumstance. And I really enjoyed reading from her perspective. She is writing it as if she's writing it to you, the reader, and so a lot of times the narrator of the story will say, "Dear reader," and will tell you, kind of just like talk with you directly. I really did like this. She has a lot that happens to her in this book. She eventually goes to school and ends up being a governess, and more from there. I was reading this and I forgot a ton about this, including about the woman in the attic, and I was shocked. It was just very scintillating kind of story that I had just no recollection of. And I did not necessarily like a couple of other characters in the book, including one of her love interests, but Jane as a character was truly delightful. But there was a lot of twists and turns, and far more than I remembered of this particular book, but it was really, really lovely. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars on Goodreads, but I would definitely recommend this one. I did not talk a lot out on Discord about this one, but it was truly, truly lovely. And oh, what a beautiful book. I'm just still in love with these Marjolaine Baston illustrated copies. So with this book, we do get to go from 871 to 870, but I don't know why I didn't put it on my 2023 list, probably because it was a reread, so that number gets to stay at 33. I do have another book though. This book I read as a buddy read with Marilyn Maya Mendoza and as part of Jen the Librarian's E.M. Forrester read along, and that book is A Room with a View by E.M. Forrester. This book was originally published in 1908. E.M. Forrester has about 6 novels or so and some other works from what I had read, short stories, things of that nature. E.M. Forrester actually has 4 books on the 1001 Book Countdown, and I have read 3. I have read A Passage to India, Where Angels Fear to Tread, and now A Room with a View. The one that I have left is Howard's End, and I do own it. So I actually own Morris as well, but it's not on the 1001 Book Countdown. So I will read it at some point, but I don't get to count it. So A Room with a View, what is this all about? This is an interesting book. I did like reading this book, but a lot of the details are already escaping me. It has a main character whose name is Lucy. There's a lot in this about kind of the hypocrisy of the very wealthy, about kind of just relations, things of those, her relationships with all the different characters in the book. And it was an enjoyable read. I really enjoyed reading it with Marilyn, but I can't really tell you much more about it because it is already escaping me. The book is both set in Italy and in England, and like I said, I'm forgetting it already. I don't know what that means for how good of a book this was. Like I said, it was an enjoyable experience reading it. I really like the character of Lucy, but I struggle to remember many of the details. So unfortunately, that's all I really have to say about A Room with a View. I do like E.M. Forrester's writing, but a lot of the details don't stick with me. I think the one that the details have stuck with me the most is actually for A Passage to India. And this one is just kind of, not sticking. So, but with this, we do get to go from 870 to 869. I'm in the 860s, everyone. Woohoo! But I also didn't put it on my 2023 list for some reason. I don't know. That number gets to stay at 33. I did not make enough progress this month. Only 2 books in total, and neither one on my 2023 list. So we'll just kind of have to go with it. What am I reading now on the 1001 Book Countdown? Absolutely nothing. I am not reading any book off of the 1001 Books You Must Read Before You Die list right now. I am kind of working on another book, but I'm not reading a ton so far in August. So we'll see how the rest of the month goes. I certainly have a number of books I could pick up, but if you're not aware, August is my kind of anti-TBR month, and I don't have a lot of plans, and I don't know where I'll go from here with it. So September is going to end up being the opposite of that. So I'm really, really happy about having my little bit of a mini break in here. So have you read Jane Eyre or A Room with a View? I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. And as always, like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, everyone, thanks. Bye.